Alright, so the first thing that you want to do when doing procedural texturing is set up 2 different shaders. So, like I said, I'll be working on Arnold for most of this demo, so I'm just going to go in and pop on a random standard surface shader, and I will call this one Orange. I realize now I should have probably chosen colors that just sort of become defaults in Maya, but here we are, I'm in the mood for orange and green. So we're going to do Orange, I'm going to make a new shader, and I will call, actually, you know what, I'm just going to make this one. What am I doing? Who cares? I don't know what I'm applying this to. Hooray! Green! It's gonna be amazing, guys. Alright, and I will make that green. And I think at this point I have not actually applied this, so I'm just gonna do that. Alright, so we have our orange and green shaders. I'm just gonna throw in a random physical sky into this, a little bit nicer than a dome light, and go ahead and pull up my render view and see what horrendous nonsense we have. And I'm just going to turn my screen around so that we have better lighting on these objects. Cool. Alright, so these are our shaders. I'm just going to go ahead and decrease the roughness on them. For some reason, the AI standard surface shader is obnoxiously shiny, and I honestly don't understand why. Just like by default, it's ridiculously sparkly. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that way the heck down. So basically, procedural texturing, what we're going to do is say on, a specific part of the model, say maybe the corners, we are going to apply one of these textures, and on everywhere else, we're going to have the other texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to set this up. If you're not super familiar with the Hypershade, you will be hopefully by the end of this tutorial, because Hypershade is key to procedural texturing. So I usually just use the little button up here. It's like the blue circle with the white little circle in it. Click on that, it'll pull up your Hypershade. You should also be able to go to like Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. Same thing. So, quick bit about just how to navigate in the Hypershade. You have a lovely preview of your material here. It'll update live as you adjust whatever settings from your material. And this is going to be a list of all of the materials in your scene. Normally the little icons will update. In this case, for some reason it's not, so excuse me. So that's most of what you're probably going to need. So this is, again, like your materials, your shaders. If you have any texture maps that you pulled in, like file textures, you're using ramps or noise textures, that'll be in here. And you can even access, the different lights or the cameras and all that good stuff in your scene if you need to. In this case, we're really only going to be looking at materials, texturing a little bit later, in this area down here. So basically what we need to do, the whole premise of procedural texturing is having a bunch of shaders that are interconnected. So what we're going to do is, in this area down here, you'll notice that there's a little key thing that says press tab to create node. So if you press tab anywhere in here, it's going to bring up this little window, and you can start typing stuff. So if you type in like color, it'll look through Maya for all of the textures, pretty much anything that has color in the name that's related to texturing. In this case, we want to make a Arnold AI mix shader. So if I type in mix, it'll pull that up. And you just use the arrow keys to navigate in here, and then just hit enter. And it's going to go ahead and manually set up a new shader for you. You'd also notice that it will pop up here as a new shader that you've made. So this takes basically 3 inputs. Like when you're looking at stuff in here, you'll see there's many fewer options than a standard shader. Like if you look at the AI surface shader we just created, this has stuff for, the base color and the specular and all of this stuff down here. Whereas the mix shader has none of that. It wants basically 3 inputs. It wants the first shader, the second shader you want to add, and then the mix weight. And I'll show you how this works in a second. But basically what you want to do to start out, grab one of your shaders, and I'm just middle mouse button, clicking and holding, and then dragging that onto shader 1, and dragging the green onto shader 2. And you'll notice it does something kind of weird if we're just like looking at this little preview up here. It's not quite the orange, and it's not quite the green. What it's doing now is it's basically just mixing them 50-50 and sort of combining them together. So if we take this mix weight slider and we turn it all the way down, it's going to look at shader 1, in this case the orange, and if we turn it all the way up, it's going to look at the green shader. So again, this like weird sort of 50-50 is what we have here. And you can set this to be whatever you want. And this sort of setup here with the mix shader, 2 shaders plugged in, and then a mix weight is really the key to most procedural texturing. So what makes this powerful, it's not so much the slider itself. You need to animate this. So like if I wanted to switch this from like orange to, a chrome or something crazy, it will animate between that. So you can set keyframes on this if you need to. But what makes this powerful is if we go and we map in something else into the mix weight. So I'm just going to start with the checker texture. And you'll see that as I sort of add this, it's sort of manually, it's populating this little area down here. It's showing you everything that's connected and how it's connected. But if we, again, look at this little preview up here, you'll see that anywhere that is white, I think, or black, I always swap the order of stuff, and it, like, drives me nuts, but basically anywhere that's white is going to be orange, anywhere that's black is going to be green. And you can sort of mess with that, so if you can play with the slider and tweak the different values of the orange or the green or anything like that. So this is what procedural texturing, this is what makes it really, really powerful. Obviously, if you're putting something like a checker or a noise texture in here, that is dependent on your UVs. So, mix, Alright, so I'm going to close this for a second, and then I'm just going to go ahead and apply this mix shader to the objects. I usually, as personal preference, I like labeling these as like mix underscore whatever, because it's easier to find later when you're looking for what you're doing. So if we go ahead and render this, you can see the mushroom is probably going to look terrible, because I have not UV'd that thing. Yeah, great, that's not UV'd at all. So that basically is some kind of weird 50-50 mix because the UVs on it are trash. But these guys here, again, they're based on UVs, so you can see like where I extrude it outwards, it has a little bit of like weird UV pulling. If we grab the mushroom and we just do, this is going to be a horrible automatic map, and just do an automatic map on that. I feel like I'm going to regret this. It's pretty dense mesh. I definitely do regret that. That was a bad decision. Great. I crashed Maya doing UVs. That's fun. Ooh, it's alive. Wait. Alright. Well, basically the point I was trying to make is a lot of, like, procedural texturing itself doesn't necessarily rely on UVs at all. Yes. That being said, that scared me there. Okay, I was going to have to restart. That being said, if you are using something, again, like a traditional noise texture or like a file texture, that is dependent on UVs. So you will need to have reasonably UV'd objects for this. And because this object is such a strange shape, it's done a pretty bad job of UVing this with automatic mapping. So again, just, I guess, quick UVing. It's still important and you should still UV your objects. Or at least understand when you can get away with not UVing them. I'll show you a weird trick on the mushroom later to sort of get some shading, different shading in different parts of the mushroom. But anywho, so that's sort of like basically how you set up a mix shader. Hopefully that made sense. I'll show you how to do more useful things and just making it like a weird checker texture in the next video.